Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the first plenary session of the Young Planners Virtual Conference. For those of you who may have missed me in the earlier piece, I'm Sue Mance and I'm the RTPI President for 2020. And it's with great pleasure that I'm chairing this first plenary session, which is all about leadership. We've got three absolutely super speakers. We've got Lucy Seymour-Bowdery, we've got Tom Carpen, and we've got Olafiyin and Taiwo. But before I get on to that, a couple of words, really. Thoughts about leadership. Great leaders don't tell you what to do. They show you how it's done. And no matter what stage you are at in your career, planners have a critical leadership role to play in creating visionary places for people. So these speakers are going to take us on a bit of a journey through their career and the qualities that they see in becoming a leader. And they are inspirational young leaders. So moving on quickly, what makes a good leader? Here's some of the words that immediately jump to mind in terms of what makes good leaders. You can see there all of those sort of human skills, those interaction skills, those skills that you probably would expect to see. But one of the challenges I posed myself in chairing this session was, well, what are the qualities of the leaders who've inspired me? And these are the ones that I pulled out from my career. And it does go back right the way, I will say, to even before I became a planner, to when I worked perhaps in part-time jobs, in Saturday jobs, when I went to things like Scout and Guide meetings, all sorts of things that you did, young volunteers. And so the whole quality about leadership, it's come from all sorts of different walks of life. And you see someone, you think, you know, that was really good what they did. And so there are things like people who inspire, support and empower you. People who also see different ways of doing things and they can improve it. And that's often done through listening to people because they're also good communicators. So they set things out very, very clearly. So everybody knows exactly what is being looked for. Really important are things like values and respect for people and the organisation. And one person particularly stands out in my mind who was a chief exec of a major organisation. And he made the point of always talking to everybody. When he was in a meeting or a room, he would go and he would want to know who you were, and he would know already, he would have remembered, and he would ask something about you. And when he met you the next time, he would remember that and play that back because he respected and he valued those people. His door was always open. It's somebody who also supports teamwork, who helps build trust. And I've got there, passes the credit, but also takes the blame if something doesn't work right, because the leader is the person who sets that strategy, that sense of direction. So if something hasn't worked, it's a case of holding a hand up and saying, yeah, got it wrong. Let's try and not make the same mistake next time. Let's learn from this. Let's take it forward. Very, very much a team player. So there's someone as a result of that who takes ownership. And as part of taking ownership, they add value to the whole organisation that they're working in. They create, as I've said, that clear sense of direction, but they also support the capability of those people who work with them. So rather than just sitting down and saying, you do this, it's about, now, how are you going to do that? Let's think this through. What can you come up with? How do you see that? And start to build that capability where necessary, support it through additional learning. One that is incredibly important to me is its honesty and integrity. Because if people are not honest and they do not have integrity, it's very hard to trust them. And if you don't trust them, it's very hard for you to see them as a leader. So again, connected to that, it's about people who listen and they act to uphold the values that they and the organisations that they work for believe in. So those are some of the qualities that have inspired me. But as very much as I was saying, these qualities I see around me in all sorts of walks of life on a daily basis, and you bring them all together and they help shape who you are and the leader. So a couple of quotes that really have stayed with me through my career. First one I thought was a superb one, is a leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. And that's by John C. Maxwell. But I would add, and the reason for this slide is actually supports others in getting there as well. So it's a little bit more than just showing the way. It's actually making sure that support is in place to help others go that way as well. And then another one that you'll often see quoted, and funnily enough, I've seen this attributed to Dolly Parton as well as John Quincy Adams, but I believe he was the first person to do it. If your actions create a legacy that inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you're an excellent leader. Now, from that, I would take, and the approach that I've followed is be the leader that you would follow. So believe in yourself, live by what you think is right. And so on to our 3 inspirational young leader speakers to see what they see of the key qualities in becoming a leader. And we've got Lucy Seymour-Bowdery, we've got Tom Carpen, and we've got Olafiyin Taiwo. And I'd very much like to start with Lucy, if I can. Over to you, Lucy.
Thanks very much, Lou.
So Lucy's just screen sharing now. We have a little handover bit here. And as soon as it comes up, then I'll let Lucy know. Yep, we're there, Lucy. Thank you.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. My name's Lucy Seymour-Bowdery. I'm on the RTPI's Board of Trustees, and I'm also a team leader at the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government. I'm going to be discussing my experience of leadership, both in the public sector and in my career as a volunteer with the RTPI. I will talk about my early career and confidence issues, and also the 3 sets of leaders who have really inspired me along the way. So the first set would be the colleagues who were with me in the very early stages of my career. The second are the young planner peers through my volunteering with the RTPI. And thirdly, I will finish by emphasising the importance of mentoring. So firstly, I wanted to say a big thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. This is my 10th year as a young planner, and I've been to every single conference in that time. So these are all the conference programmes that I've collected over the years. And I'm really honoured and delighted to be at my 10th and final one. So the conference has taken me from Birmingham to London, Leeds to Bristol, Southampton to Belfast, Manchester, Nottingham and Newcastle, and finally virtually, as is so very 2020. I've met a great many young planners who have shown extraordinary leadership skills and have learned a lot from my peers. I just can't believe it's been a decade for me. And although I won't be a young planner anymore, I'm really looking forward to seeing what the next decade has in store for you. So this is a quote from the great Audrey Hepburn, and it really sums up how I felt for a great number of years in my early career, and to be honest, still do sometimes even now. On a recent leadership course, I realised that it's really my confidence that sometimes held me back, not my ability. And that's taken a long time to sort of sink in. And I always thought that those leaders or people that I saw as leaders were either extroverts or were very confident people. And some of them are, some of them aren't. And it turns out that the main quality in what I saw as an inspirational leader is the people who are their authentic selves. And I think with authenticity comes empathy in others and the ability for people to connect with you, which I think also links really well to inclusive leadership. So the leaders I'm going to be speaking about have all displayed these qualities. And the first set of leaders I wanted to talk about are 2 colleagues who supported me through my career at council. Even only 10 years ago, where I worked, the planning profession was predominantly men who were great colleagues. But the women I did work with really stuck out. There weren't many of them, but they really stuck out as having inspired really positive changes in my development. One was my team leader who believed in me and was always encouraging me to go for the next level up and supported me through my master's course. And it was the little things she said, like, one day I can see you leading a team. And it was a little thing, but I remembered that over the years. Whenever my confidence was taking a dip or thinking whether I should apply for something, I remembered her saying that. And the other was a colleague who was a truly inspirational planner. She was always looking for the best spatial outcome. Her positivity is absolutely infectious, and she's always managed to kind of overcome the issue that I think so many of us can get into sometimes, which is getting caught up in the process itself. And she didn't sort of succumb to that. And she always listens and values other people's views within the team, particularly in terms of their diverse perspective. So whenever I was feeling the tiring effects of low self-confidence, the leadership qualities in these two women inspired me to focus on my strengths when seeking to move to the next level. So the second set of leaders I wanted to talk about are those that I've encountered through my voluntary work with the RTPI. I started volunteering for the South Coast Young Planners Network as the newsletter editor. And I think I started out how many young planners volunteers do, by going to one of the socials, having a few drinks and signing up to a role I'd probably not previously thought about. And I'm so glad that I did. I realised that there could be a lot more to being a planner than what I do for my day job, and was really inspired by my peers who had taken on leadership roles in their spare time to organise events and shape the future of the profession. So, for example, I was really inspired by the young planners who showed passion and professionalism in their leadership of their local networks. As chairs, they would promote the networks, they would proactively find the sponsorship for events, they'd undertake public speaking to share learning, and would also, organise the socials and networking events. So then it came to 2015, and I had the opportunity to lead a team to organise the Young Planners Conference in Southampton, and that's the team that you can see on the screen. This was over the course of a year, and it provided me with many new skills, including my first opportunity to lead a team, and with really aim to sort of bring out the best in people according to everyone's individual strengths. So this was a really good opportunity for me, and leading this team gave me the skills and the confidence to move my career to the next level, as I directly use this as an example of leadership when I first applied for my role in the civil service. And I also began to build up experience of volunteering at a national level and became the Young Planner Trustee for 4 years before I moved on to the corporate trustee position that I have now. And this gave me a new experience of charity governance. This was a totally different perspective for me. As a public sector employee, I'm used to sort of making recommendations to councillors and now ministers, and they are the ones who make the decisions. But as an RTPI board member, in my role now, I'm an elected member who makes the decisions on how the institute is run as a charity. So this has been a really interesting dynamic for me and provided me with a whole wealth of new leadership skills. So thirdly, I wanted to emphasise the importance of having a mentor and how that's really helped me along the way. I've always looked to mentors as a more personal form of leadership and feel that I've benefited greatly from both having a mentor and also being a mentor myself. So I think there are different reasons to have a mentor at different stages of your career. For example, when undertaking your APC, can be very helpful when you're new to a role, or also for when you are seeking a promotion. And I've found having a mentor incredibly valuable at all of these stages. My mentors have supported me and helped me to develop my own personal style of leadership. I think when left to think about my career development alone, the lack of self-confidence, I think, comes in again. And I've too often focused on addressing my weaknesses. But my mentors have also helped me to recognise and build on the actual strengths that I have. So finding a mentor, I think it's always helpful to think about the type of leader who you feel you'd best benefit from. And there are some really good mentoring programs, and you can find these on the RTPI's website, or perhaps even within your own organisations. But I've also sometimes found that you can also find a mentor simply by asking someone who inspires you. And just to finish, finally, this is a quote from my favourite character from a Canadian sitcom, and someone who is always her authentic self. When one of us shines, all of us shines. And I think, for me, this really sums up the impact that good leadership can have on an individual's career, also on the teams you work in, across your organisation, and also across a whole profession. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lucy. That was really interesting, and I think there's some really big takeaways in that. And for me, just jumping out the quote you said about be your authentic self. I think that's so important, and be comfortable with yourself. And I think the other thing you brought out very much is it doesn't matter what stage you are in your career or what your role is, you can still influence and demonstrate leadership. So with those in mind, if we can perhaps go on to Tom. Tom, over to you. Do you want to screen share?
Thank you, Sue, and just bear with me a sec.
That's wonderful, Tom. It's showing now.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sue. And good morning, everybody. And thank you again to the RTPI for this opportunity to speak. I'm going to talk about my experiences of leadership through complexity from about 20 years of working in infrastructure planning. But hopefully this talk follows on nicely from Lucy's just now, because so many points that Lucy made really resonate with me and my experience as well. So I hope this adds an extra layer to Lucy's observations as a leader herself. So I'm an infrastructure and energy associate with planning consultancy Barton Willmore, but currently on secondment to MHCLG's national infrastructure team. And I've been very fortunate in my career, I must admit, to have worked in some high profile organisations, both in the public sector and the private sector, and also recently as a board member of the National Infrastructure Planning Association. And within that, a number of roles, including team leader roles. So I hope that I can bring some of that experience to this talk. And if there are two things that really hope you can sort of take from the following slides, it's firstly that trusting people early in their career and young people with responsibility and leadership is actually essential if we're going to handle complexity. And secondly, that building your network to be diverse and working across professional boundaries really also makes a difference to being able to handle some of the complex challenges that we face, and planning's role in that. So shortly, I'm going to talk about a specific example in my own career of handling that complexity. But before I do that, just want to expand on what I mean by complexity. It's clearly a very challenging time at the moment for everyone, and it's certainly not business as usual. And the top three examples for me are obviously the pandemic, climate change, and our exit from the European Union. And these really are shaping how we live and where we live, and how we invest in places, both in terms of economic investment, social and environmental. So for me, that's the context that planning is working within, and there are others as well. There's so many layers to this, and there's lots of interactions within that. So seeing the planning system and the role we play as planners, really putting it in that context kind of just starts to give you a sense of how complex this is. And that always gets me to think about, what type of leadership approaches work best. So I'd like to talk through one particular example of climate change from my own career. So I was very fortunate to work at the Greater London Authority. I was a couple of years into my career as a planner, and in the planning decisions unit there. And I was asked if I could help make sure that developers included renewable energy on site in their proposals. And this was new at the time. It was quite groundbreaking to have a planning policy that looked at energy and climate change. There hadn't been something like this before. And very quickly became clear to me that, and to the team, that the real ambition for the Mayor and for London was for it to be a world leader in tackling climate change. So simply asking for a few solar panels on projects wasn't going to be enough. So very much this involved developers, it involved London boroughs, the energy industry in London and beyond, the Mayor's office, the environment team and the planning teams. And a long story with lots of ups and downs and fun along the way, very short. Within 4 years, we had secured sustainable energy measures on every development coming to the mayor. We had the evidence base to rewrite the policy, as I've put on this slide, and we were able to engage other world cities, which was significant, I think, in showing how planning played a role in a much wider ambition. And what I want to do now is just reflect on sort of the leadership lessons for me, and how we managed to sort of achieve that in such a short space of time. And the first and probably most important element of this is that young people were trusted to lead, and people early in their careers were given responsibility. And the GLA itself was a young organisation. It's only a few years old, and the energy and the creativity and the enthusiasm that we generated really drove us to take these challenges on. And there was a diverse range of people, certainly diverse backgrounds, particularly in the planning team. Really sort of taught me that it wasn't about me being a planner, it was about me as a person and what I brought to the table and what other people brought to the table, which enabled us to work across professions. And I learned so much from my colleagues in the environment team. I learned all the details about how to, how different technologies worked. And we were able to work constructively with developers to try and tackle climate change. And I just wanted to illustrate 3 people actually who really, their leadership, as I saw it, really made a difference. And they were early on in their careers and their roles as well. The Mayor's Energy Advisor at the time turned political vision into strategy and gave me a lot of support in terms of being able to negotiate with developers. The London Energy Partnerships Manager, again, had contacts throughout London and was able to put through guidance to help developers actually take constructive approaches early on when they're bringing proposals forward. And I had a consultant engineer working alongside me in the negotiations as well, who was able to really kind of scrutinize developments, but actually come up with innovations and solutions to see this again as a constructive way forward. Because when the policy first came in, there was a lot of resistance. All 3 are now playing significant roles internationally in terms of tackling climate change, but it was the leadership efforts they made at the time, which were really about, problem solving, using their abilities to come up with solutions that actually made a difference. And I think, it's no surprise to me now that they're where they are, but it was very much just the enthusiasm they brought, the intelligence they brought at the time that really made a difference at that stage. They were leaders then, in my view. The flip side to this, because I was really lucky, my manager gave me that space and that opportunity to try and implement these policies and work with other people, and I was allowed to just build the relationships that I needed. Leaders that limit that opportunity for young people, I say here, but also for anyone early in their career or in a role to take that responsibility, I think that also has an impact on an organization or on the ability for us to solve problems. And so I think that's just a note of caution to be, mindful of that if you're in that kind of situation, because I do think that leaders can really harness the abilities of a diverse range of people in an organization at whatever level they're at. My second reflection is something that sticks with me, and particularly when looking at teamwork. There is no route map for some of these challenges. We've got to come up with new ways, novel ways of approaching them. We've got to do it in collaborative ways that we perhaps haven't done before. And no one person can know it all, no matter how much people might project that. So I always think of a peloton as a good analogy for how you can think about leadership, because you can play a different role in that peloton at any time. There will be different skills that are required, but you can really kind of find your way through and do it really effectively in that way. So it's always worth bearing in mind who's in your peloton when you're taking on a complex problem, and whose pelotons are you in and who can you support. I think that's something that certainly I always come back to, and it's very difficult to go it alone. So just to sort of finish a couple of slides, I was asked to reflect what I think key qualities for a good leader could be. And for me, I think curiosity is up there. I think if you are always asking questions, always keen to learn, then whatever level you're at, you're talking to people on an equal basis, of sort of adult to adult. You can really start to understand challenges, and you can find things that you're interested in. It keeps you motivated. Lucy's talk really resonated with me as well, because I've had times in my career of lack of confidence, and actually more so later in the career than earlier on, because of some of the challenges that I faced. But self-assurance really matters, and having confidence in your ability, your skills, things that interest you, really do give you resilience. And if you balance that with humility, then you'll always know that there's things you can learn from other people. And I think if you blend those three together, that's a good basis from which to start, and certainly in my experience anyway. And so to finish, practical ways to build leadership skills. I think, again, I was very fortunate to have quite a big challenge early on in my career, but find a problem, however small, that requires some collaboration, and you get the chance to work with others and really sort of unpick that problem and find ways forward. And it gives you some really good insights into how other people think and look at problems from different angles. And through that, you can build mutually supportive relationships. And again, echoing Lucy, the peer side of things is perhaps the strongest support that I've had through my career. And so I'm really a big fan of peer mentoring as well. And if you can find peers and people beyond the planning bubble, as I'd call it, then I think you can really build you're able to make sense of some of these complex challenges much more quickly. And that engagement, I think, will then last you through your career as well. And before you know it, all of your peers will also be in very influential leadership positions, and you'll have a very strong supportive network. And so with that, I'll hand back to Sue, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Tom, for that. Again, another really, really insightful presentation. The things that I particularly picked up was about trusting people early in your career with that responsibility to lead, because planners, everything we deal with is complexity and the challenges that go with that. So that really jumped out, and I thought your example was really well done. And I think the other couple of things that jumped out, lots of the qualities that you mentioned, there was a synergy, and I say with the ones that Lucy had picked up, with the ones that I'd picked up, and I thought the practical ways were really great ideas of where you can build those leadership skills. So we're on to our final presenter now, Olafiyin. If I can hand the stage over to you for your version of it. Sound. Hello?
Okay, I think you should hear me.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
The screen share next, so if you want to sort of get onto that, and I'll let you know as soon as it appears. We're all grappling with this new technology, this new platform, but by the end of today, it will be a whiz through. Wonderful, they're there. Thank you, Olafiyin. It's over to you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Olafiyin, like Sue has mentioned, and I'm also the convener for the Young Planners Network for the Commonwealth Association of Planners. I'm also the co-chair for the UN Habitat Planners for Climate Action, and a member of the RTPI General Assembly and International Committee. It's really a pleasure to be here today. I was looking forward to attending this year's conference in Scotland, but like Lucy mentioned, this is 2020. Thank you to the organizing committee and the RTPI for organizing this event, and I am very grateful for the opportunity to share my planning journey. I have listened to Lucy and Tom share their leadership experience, and it really resonates with me, as well as with what Sue has mentioned. I'd like to give a big background to my own planning journey, just to set the pace for what I would be discussing after. As a young girl, I watched how a member of my family, who is a planner, how we interacted with his built environment colleagues. This included architects, surveyors, planners as well, from different sectors, and how they supported each other. I observed how they shared views, how they disagreed and reached consensus on planning matters. And I admired their commitment and dedication to this, to planning. and particularly to improving the quality of life and promoting the integrity of the planning profession. Over time, I have worked with in the public sector, in the private sector, and in the third sector at local, regional, and international levels. And I can confirm that this dedication and commitment of most planners to improving the quality of life and environment is universal. So, to me, leadership is about influence, and there are different opportunities to influence, be it at our workplace, at our professional bodies, or our local communities. However, I would like to share how young planners are leading in the Commonwealth Association of Planners Young Planners Network. The Commonwealth Association of Planners is the association for planning institutes within the Commonwealth. It has over 27 members from the different Commonwealth countries, and the RTPI is a founding member. My journey with Commonwealth Association of Planners actually started in March 2020, this year. And with the commitment of all the young planners, we have been able to achieve quite a number of feats that we wouldn't have been possible given the current pandemic. One of the things we did was we formed a management structure that allows young people to demonstrate their leadership skills. A steering group was formed initially in April with 4 young planners from 4 countries, that's the United Kingdom, Nigeria, Ghana, and Kenya. But this steering group has now increased to 16 members from 14 countries. And committees were also formed to focus on key areas such as communication, research, capacity building, and international cooperation. We've also witnessed an increase in the Commonwealth-wide participation through our social media platforms. We have recorded over 75 increase in reach and participation. We have a huge participation of planners from across the Commonwealth and even beyond. We have also received inquiries from non-CAP members who are interested in participating in the activities of the young planners. One of the other feats we have recorded is we launched a mentoring program called Edway. This mentoring program is targeted at young planners at the early career stage. And the purpose for this program is really to make sure the young planners are supported at the earliest stage and to address the capacity gap in planning within the Commonwealth. We also launched our essay competition this year, and given the circumstances, we had to monitor everything online. And we received over 24 entries from 11 countries and had great representation at the Planning Awards ceremony. We also had young planners from 5 different associations who were invited to serve as judges. So the essays were also marked by young planners from the different Commonwealth countries. We have received numerous inquiries about the next essay competition. I'd move to the international relations aspect of what we have achieved. We have built relationships with over 6 different international organizations. And these are not limited to organizations within the Commonwealth. We've built relationships with other professional bodies. We've built relationship with other non-profit organizations and bilateral organizations from the different, at international level, really. And this is the reason why we have been able to achieve this is because of the contribution and the work of young planners from the different Commonwealth countries. So this journey hasn't been without its own roadblock and barriers. For example, given the diverse countries participating in the network, we had challenges relating to different planning systems. We had challenges relating to cultural differences, different time zones, identifying diverse needs and coming to a consensus on the needs. We also had issues relating to varying professional standards and other personal assumptions. And so I'd go to leadership qualities. What has contributed to what we have been able to achieve and how we've been able to overcome the challenges have been the leadership qualities that the young planners have been able to demonstrate in the last 6 months. The number one is vision. And vision to us is that we set goals, clear-cut goals, actually, and objectives. And we were clear on what we wanted to achieve. We identified structures and systems that were needed to achieve this vision, and we started working immediately. With young planners representing their various institutes, we decided to create committees and subcommittees. The young planners who were representing their institutes at the steering group became co-chairs of these committees, and each co-chair had an opportunity to lead a team and also an opportunity to demonstrate their leadership skills. At the moment, we're working on our strategy and our action plan, but our aim remains the same, which is to ensure that all young planners from all the member institutes can participate in the activities of the network. The second one is commitment. We live in over 15 different time zones, and it's normally difficult to come to a consensus as to meeting times, because when it's morning in the UK, it's night in Canada. When it's midday, it's night in Australia. So we had to look at how we would work together, and there was no way we could set a particular time that worked well for everyone. But these young leaders have been committed to ensuring that they participate even in all the meetings, regardless of the time of the day it falls to in their own country. And that has contributed to a lot of achievements because we've been able to reach consensus, we've been able to make decisions sooner than expected. The third one is collaboration. Collaboration is very critical because this present day challenges, they cut across borders, cut across sectors, cuts across disciplines. And whilst planning is critical to resolving these challenges, planning in isolation will be detrimental to all communities and environment. Therefore, it is very critical that we engage others and other disciplines. And so in our own working, we ensured that we had multidisciplinary and multi-sectoral partnership style to create that synergy and amplify our effort. In the steering group, for example, we have lecturers, we have urban designers, we have local planners, local authority planners, we have regional planners with specialty in communications, we have planning entrepreneurs, we have innovators, we also have private sector consultants and planners who are working in the third sector. This way, if we are to approach a potential sponsor, we know we are able to address their needs and able to present our proposition clearly and in a way that meets the needs of the potential sponsor. And I'd go to the fourth one, which is innovative problem solving. We have faced a lot of challenges, and definitely we will continue to face challenges even as we implement the programs we have set out to achieve. But one thing is certain, innovative problem solving has been key to how we've been able to address these challenges that we have faced so far. We have evaluated issues with different styles and techniques. And I learned about the trees model from an engineering friend of mine who informed me that this method is actually taught across a different spectrum of engineering. And this method, this trees model, has been very useful to us in addressing the challenges. I would like to encourage everyone to read more about this method and identify how they can use it in solving the challenges that they face. One of the things I took out from this trees model approach to problem solving is the fact that there are different ways and different methods to solving a problem. And so there is always a solution. We might not have identified it yet, but there is always a solution to every problem that arises. And I want to go to the last one, which is core values. We identified our core values as a network. We decided to have this session dedicated basically to core values to look at what is important to each representative of the institutes as representing their institutes. And we looked at what is important to the network as a whole in achieving our goals. Also, in identifying the co-chairs who would lead the committees, we asked each members to identify their core values and let us know the areas where their strength lies, so that they are put in areas where they would also develop their strength, work on their strength rather than working on their weaknesses, similar to what Lucy has mentioned. So in conclusion, I would like to talk about what I've learned as being a leader and what my advice would be to my younger self and to other young planners who are interested in leading. Leadership, like I mentioned earlier on, it's influencing, it's helping others to achieve their goals. And I would always say the number one thing so far that I have learned is it's important to have a vision. Having a clear-cut vision for one's career to set the goals and objectives, it's very, very important, particularly because you are the CEO of your life. You are the CEO of your career. I know it's a cliche, but at the same time, it is actually true. You can start leading in your own career, start creating that opportunity within yourself to lead. And I would also say that you can start demonstrating these leadership skills by having a plan. So when you have a vision, it's always good to have a plan. The RTPI, for example, as an organization, we launched the corporate strategy earlier this year. Another strategy was launched regarding diversity and inclusion. An action plan was launched on how the corporate strategies would be achieved. So it's very important, just not to overburden the matter. It's very important to really have a vision for how you want your career in particular to go. I would also say that this is where the professional development plan comes into place. The template has been provided by RTPI, and it's a good opportunity for us to make use of it. We can even make use of it beyond the 2-year plan that the RTPI has requested for. We can make a 5-year plan, for example. It just creates that opportunity to have a vision, to know where you're going, and if an opportunity arises earlier, it's easier to spot it when there is a plan. And also, you'll be able to identify when there is a derailment and when there is an advancement from your plan. And in the words of the Olympic gold medalist, Ben Davids, the question becomes, will this make the boat go faster when you're making decisions? It's about, will these activities and this engagement that I'm involved in, will it help me achieve the goals? Will it help me to live in my core values? And I'll move to the core values. For me, it's important. I think it's important for you to know your core values and to have a support network. It's also very important to have a good environment that supports your mental health. We all know this, that even in our planning endeavors, we have experienced challenges that have threatened our mental health, or that has the potential to threaten our mental health. But if we are working in an area that does not align with our core values, then it can escalate the issues relating to our mental health. And it's very important, because our health, as we know it, is wealth for us. And there are also many organizations that would provide that support network to enhance our mental health within the RTPI. For example, there is the Women in Planning, which RTPI is in partnership with. There is the Bain Planners Network. There is the Neurodiversity in Planning, among other networks that is available for us to build our network and at the same time enhance our mental health. The fourth one is be bold, be creative, and be courageous. I would say, in short, take actions. In the word of Grace Upa, she said, if it is a good idea, go ahead and do it. It's much easier to apologize than it is to get permission. One of my mentors also gave me this advice, and I want to share it with you today. There are still fallow grounds on cultivated lands waiting to be cultivated in every profession. Find what aligns with your core values and cultivate the land. Like Lucy mentioned, it is very important to have a mentor. Clive Erridge, the Secretary General of Commonwealth Association of Planners, mentioned in his interview with the planner, if you want to go ahead in life, get a mentor. Experience is the best teacher, but no one says it must be your own personal experience. And it is sometimes very costly to learn from personal experiences when there are others who are willing to share their experiences and provide support so you don't fall into the same errors they made. You go faster and you go quicker with a mentor. And finally, I would say get involved with the RTPI. Lucy has mentioned how the RTPI has supported her in achieving our goals and in becoming the leader that she is today, the inspirational leader, in fact, that she is today. There are opportunities to join committees, there are opportunities to join the regional boards, and I would advise, look out for opportunities that align with your core values and do not be afraid to take the first step. I wish you all the best and I look forward to seeing you around. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Olafiyin. And I think what you've given us there is the most incredible demonstration of real leadership skills on a global level. And this is something that I will say you have done on top of your day job. So that is, you know, for people who think, oh, I can't do this, this you have done as a volunteer at a global level, and the level of commitment that you have shown in terms of dialing into all the calls at sometimes 4 and 5 in the morning, that is about leadership as well. That's so insightful, because there's a lot of questions coming in, and I think it's so important to look out of the box and in terms of what you've done there, say on top of the day job in a local authority. So thank you very much. And I think that, you know, the things that you talk, again, the resonance about leadership qualities, and the final message, get involved in the RTPI. What a wonderful way to actually step outside and start to develop those leadership skills, as Lucy really showed how that's actually taken Lucy forward very, very much. And Tom, again, the same points coming through. So thank you to 3 amazing and inspirational young leaders. And I think the other thing you've shown is people aren't born to leadership. You actually have to make something happen to become that leader. You can't just wait for it to arrive to you. You have to look for those opportunities and be prepared to go. Now, we've got an awful lot of questions coming in, some of which are very quick and easy. I think we may be able to answer, some of which might require a bit of thought. But if it's at all possible, if I can ask, because I'm looking at time, a very, very quick question of each of you. And I think there's some overlap with the questions that have come in. If I could just start with you, Tom, what motivates you in 2020? And this links to a question from Ryan, which is about sort of the economic challenges, the job market, all of that sort of thing. But what gets you out of bed in 2020?
Thank you, Sue, and Ryan as well. And I'll try and keep this as brief as possible. But like a lot of people, I found myself in furlough a few months back, and it was quite a strange place to be. You suddenly have no contact with your purpose, your daily work, and it got me to really think hard and go back to basics. And one of the things I did was read Jane Jacobs' Death and Life of Great American Cities, and it just started getting me thinking about planning again, got me motivated. And I just contacted a couple of people and started talking about it. And before you know it, you are kind of back in the zone, so to speak. And, you know, I'm very fortunate. I've got a secondment that's really motivating me now. And I think it's something to do with seeing that there are challenges there that need addressing, but knowing you have to work with other people who inspire you and sort of get your brain cells going. It's that everyday sense of, I'm looking forward to working with these people. I'm looking forward to taking on that challenge.
Thank you. And if I can sort of do a similar thing with Lucy, and it's really about how would you motivate others? And this connects a little bit to a question from Jennifer, where she's talking about as a non-planner working in a local authority for a housing partnership and strategy. So she only sort of dips in and out. So it's how would you sort of motivate others, and perhaps those who aren't necessarily directly involved in day-to-day planning, but obviously are here because they've got an interest and are members.
Yeah, I think in terms of motivating others, I've always taken the personal approach. So I always think well-being first with people before anything else. So I think having positivity and a real focus on who people are and what individuals bring to the team. And I think that does extend out to what you're saying about celebrating people's diverse skills and perspectives, especially when we're talking about sort of people within the planning sphere or the urban environment, you know, in general. So I think it's valuing individuals' expertise is really key there.
Thank you. And if I can now just sort of throw the next question to Olafiyin, and this really is about, it's about what values are most important to you as a leader. But if I can actually also put another question that came from Esmond through to you. We've all three of you have talked a lot about mentoring, and you particularly, Olafiyin, that was a really, really strong thing, the importance of that. But he's saying, what is he asking of someone when he asks them to become a mentor? So it's about sort of what values and that connects then across to the mentor.
Thank you very much, Sue. I would say as a leader, personally to me, the core values that are very important to me, I would start with our consistency, resilience, and collaboration. I can add a bit to it all and say commitment, because they all require commitment. And this is because the desired results, you don't get the result immediately. The way to the results are not also straightforward as well. So you need to be very consistent. You need to keep on hitting the block until the wall until it falls. And also you have to be resilient, because you have to ensure that no does not actually mean an outright rejection. No can be try again later. No can be we don't have the resources now. No can be you need to improve on the idea, but it's not an outright rejection of the idea. So you have to be resilient, and that's one of the things I've learned from the TREES model in looking at all the 40 different steps or principles to get to yes, really. And if I want to link that to the mentoring program, to mentoring as a whole, I would say it's very important to have a vision. So when you go and meet a mentor, I've always asked my mentors clear questions in terms of, are you able to mentor me in this area? Are you able to mentor me with achieving my chartered membership, for example? So, and then we walk around the APC, we work on the application, we work on the experiences towards the APC. And so if it's, are you able to mentor me regarding taking an international role, regarding representing the RTPI, for example, when I had to represent the RTPI on the P4CA board at that international level, I approached someone who had the experience of working at that international level and said, I'm representing my institute now. I know some things, but I know that I don't know what I need to know enough. Are you able to provide that support in that area? So I guess it's being very clear on what you want. And it could be a one-off, it could be 3 months. So I also had a mentor that I particularly asked about HR, which has to do with managing people. And as a leader, managing people from the different, leading really from the different Commonwealth countries, it's very important that I know how to lead and handle conflicts when it arises from a human resource and people relationship perspective. So I asked a mentor if she could provide that for a year. So there is a time to it, and we only meet once in a month. So it's been very specific like that. I hope I answered the question.
That was really, really helpful. And on that question, I think the key point to me, mentors cover all sorts of different things. They're where you want that help and support and guidance. I can see some nods there. I don't know if Lucy, you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, as I said, my presentation, there's very different reasons why you might want to mentor, and I think if you're clear from the outset what you're hoping to get out of the mentoring relationship, then that's always really helpful. But yeah, there's been some questions about whether it's a formal relationship. I think it usually is. There are different programs, but I've also had situations where I've just asked someone, you know, within an organisation to be my mentor, and we've then met, you know, on a semi-regular basis and set goals and just discuss where I am and where I want to be. So it really depends on what you want from the situation, I think.
That's really helpful. Thank you. quick question there from Annabelle about the RTPI Chief Planners of tomorrow. You've actually preempted almost my closing slide, which will come up in a couple of minutes' time, which tells you about really go to the RTPI website, keep monitoring it, and I'd encourage everybody to look at that, and also to look at the Young Planners area on that. So we've got one last question, which, oh no, two questions left. No, actually, one is still covering it, mentoring, so I think we've done it. So one question left, which just is enough time. And it's probably, it says mainly for Lucy, but actually I think it's for all of you, because you've all worked in local authorities, as I've worked in a local authority. And it's this sort of perception that there may be less opportunity to develop as a leader. And each of you have come from that local authority background, as I started out. And it's any advice on how to get more experience within a local authority without changing your role, which is often the route people take. So if I can sort of go around you in turn, perhaps start with Tom and then go around in turn.
Thank you, Sue. And yeah, a really good question, this one, because each local authority is obviously going to be very different sort of culturally. And so the starting point for me is really, is this a local authority that's committed to growing its talent and giving that opportunity, not just within the planning teams maybe, but across the business, because leadership skills are corporate as much as anything else. And I do know there are local authorities that have really good access to leadership programs where lots of talks and guidance from chief execs and leaders of the council and others. But in my own experience, I think it was very much talking to people to look beyond the role and the status and say what problems need solving. You know, is there a gap in planning policy that might need looking at, and stepping forward saying, I'd like to take on this challenge. At Greenwich Council, no one wanted to do the environmental policy side, so I said, well, I'll give it a go, and I've never sort of stepped away from energy and climate change since. So it's things like that. There's always a gap. And it's finding that gap and putting yourself forward.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that was exactly the situation I was put in 2 years into my career, an opportunity to work on the International Convention Centre in Birmingham. Well, you know, nobody else seemed to want to do it because they didn't see, they saw it as a time limited project. And therefore they were looking at their careers. They saw the people at my level. And I just thought, no, I'm going to go for that. This is different. And look where it got me. Olafiyin, any comment from you?
Tom has echoed my suggestion, but I would also like to add to that and say that you can ask for opportunities. You can spot opportunities and ask for opportunities as well. Sometimes it's not always very clear and it's not always very direct, but if, like Thomas mentioned, there are always gaps within the local authority. There are always issues, opportunities to work on. There are always opportunities wrapped up as challenges. So I would say look out for those and also ask for the opportunities. Thank you.
And finally, Lucy.
Yeah, just to bring in another dimension, I suppose, specific to the example that Bethany has raised. If you are doing sort of voluntary work outside of your, your own role within a local authority to try and get different experience, and how do you then connect the two? Well, I think there's an opportunity there just to tell your colleagues about what you're doing. They might not know, hold a talk, a lunchtime session, share some of the learning with them, and sort of create opportunities and get known within your local authority there, and meet people within your organisation as well as outside of, to kind of bridge that gap. And you'll find that there might be opportunities that arise that way.
Thank you very much. And right, I'm just going to quickly screen share my screen. Hopefully it will work. And there we are, coming towards the end of the we are at the end of the session. And thank you so much to the three amazing, inspirational young leaders. You've really shown those leadership qualities and how they are there at that young level, and that they are just developing. Thank you so much for everything that you've said there. And I really hope that it's been interesting to everyone that's listened in. Hopefully that the questions that you posed have been sort of answered and they've given you the information and pointed the way. And what I just want to say is visit the expo booth as part of this event, the conference, for more information and for links to various opportunities. That's where the Chief Planners of tomorrow, you'll find some information about that, and also the Young Planner of the Year. I noticed in the chat box the link was there on that. And finally, That's not quite working, is it? But let's try here. There we go, better screen share. Finally then, a big thank you to our headline sponsors for this event. And it's now time to enjoy a 15-minute networking break. Thank you all so much for joining us, and have a wonderful conference. If this plenary is anything to go by, it really will be very special. So thank you once again. Bye.